What is up, watch friends? Welcome to another episode of Talking Timepieces with Tony. As you can see, it's a little bit different angle. I got the new couch. It's Paco's couch. Right, Paco? Yeah, it's a good boy. Uku's right here. Well, she just jumped off. And anyway, so I usually have my angle that way, but my new table is also a lot longer. So anyway, whatever. So today we have an episode. How the hell did Rolex miss this? Not only Rolex, the AD, the service center. So I'm going to roll the intro and we'll talk about it.
You're watching Timepieces with Tony. Talking Timepieces with Tony.
Okay, so without distractions from my cats, because here's Uku staring at me right now. And I hope it doesn't distract you either. But anyway, so those who watched my previous video, my little sister did, for her birthday, buy a Rolex Submariner, reference number 14060M. Okay, this is important to get the whole gist of the story. So she said everyone knows at this point now that Uku is staring at the camera, that the Rolex certified pre-owned was launched in the United States on the 3rd of May, and that's when she bought it at her local AD. She was one of the first people to buy the certified pre-owned watch in the United States. So I was really stoked. She's really happy. I was just really happy for her. So she sends me a photo of the watch, along with a photo of the paperwork and the cards and all that stuff, Great. She's like, it's a 2-line sub. Excuse me. It's a 2-line sub, and I'm super happy, blah, 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 the whole thing. I'm stoked as well. Now, but she sends me a photo of the card. Now, keep in mind, the reference number of the card is a 14060M. The 14060 is actually a 2-line sub. The M is a 4-line sub. However, excuse me, when she sent me that, I didn't put those two together because I wasn't really thinking about it. And I was like, plus I'm not a historian on Rolex Submariners, but I thought, wait a minute, is it? That was it. I kind of just let it go. So a little bit later on, she texted me and she said, hey, my Rolex, now keep in mind, my little sister is an Omega. She knows everything about Omega. I've said this before, and those of you who've seen the video she did on the Speedmaster, it's amazing. But only recently been converted to Rolex. I guarantee you in another month or so, she'll know more about Rolex than I do. You know what I mean? But I think she gets her investigative skills from me, maybe, right? Because I'm an investigator, okay? So, anyway, she sends me a text message and says, hey, my watch doesn't say COSC on the dial. I was like, Rolex doesn't say COSC on the dial. It says superlative chronometer. She goes, well, it doesn't say that on the dial. I know it's a 2-line sub. Don't worry about it. Trust me. It says it on the hang tag. It doesn't say it on the hang tag. I went, it's okay. Don't worry about it. It is a superlative chronometer. Rolex started getting their movements certified in the late 50s. I think it was 57, maybe 1957. Anyway, not 100% sure, but that's about it. And I go, don't worry about that. But she also, she has insurance on her watches as well. So she then sends me a text message and says, the photo of the watch on the appraisal paper is a different watch than the watch she has. And I went, The watch on her appraisal paper is a 4-line sub, not a 2-line sub. And of course, me going, okay, well, for insurance purposes, that has to be fixed because you don't want to run into any type of problems. Trust me, man, I'm an investigator. I will find shit and I will, and through unbeknownst to her, if she filed a claim and something happened and she didn't know, there could be a problem, all right? So I said, okay, you have to get that fixed. But then I went, you know what? I'm going to just double check on the 14060 and the 14060M. And sure enough, the 14060 is a 2-line sub. And it was replaced with the 14060M. The only difference between those two watches aesthetically is what you can see is that the 14060 is a 2-line sub, and the M is a 4-line sub. Now you look at the card and it says M. She clearly doesn't have that, does she? Right? So I essentially now throw up a red flag, a fraud flag, if you will, again. And I'm like, okay, so there's definitely a problem. So at this point, and I had sent her a text with the difference between the two watches. This is before I called her. So now keep in mind, I'm not taking all this credit for something I figured out, because she's smart enough and she's doing her own investigative work for insurance purposes, and she wanted to be sure, and that's why she texted me and wanted to know. And I went, you know what, there's too much here that can be in a text. I need to call her. So I called her. And I said, look, there's a problem here, okay? If you're looking at insurance purpose, say for instance, and you file a claim. Now I have a specialty in what I do, but at the same time, I've probably taken every course within the National Insurance Crime Training Academy that they have, including watch theft, jewelry theft, lost, mysterious disappearances, or what they called, things like that. So my immediate thought now comes up as there's a fraud flag. It's a flag that's telling me there's some kind of possible fraudulent element to what's going on. However, not against my sister, but and again, if I was, and I didn't know my sister and I didn't know what happened, there could be a potential there of, and when you're flagged for fraud in insurance, people don't know this, It's not just lying to your insurance company, but at the same time, you've got to. There's a whole bunch of things you have to go. You have to go. A common thing is an examination under oath, where you have to interview this person. Now that you've interviewed them, and then now you want to interview them in person under oath, under a sworn, and it's a testimony basically, and we grill the shit out of you with the questions we ask, And then if it's the case that it's that we have enough to confirm that there's fraud involved in this. Sometimes we know there's a fraud involved in it, but you can't piece it together enough to put it together. You file in auto, it's an FD1 with the Department of Insurance, which flags fraud, which then can notify the National Insurance Crime Bureau, which in turn, if they choose to prosecute, they can prosecute you and you can go to jail. That's how it works. So don't lie to your insurance carriers. You think it's all, but everyone does. So off the beaten track, I'm thinking, all right, man, there's a flag here. So I call her up and I go, Nick, I think there's a problem here, and well, we all know there's a problem here. And she had also told me that the sales rep was, not that experienced. She even showed my sister a Submariner that was a sea dweller, you know what I mean? My little sister, no, it's a sea dweller. She's like, oh my God, you're right, Okay, ADs don't know everything, man, but if you have an AD, a sales rep at an AD, make sure they know what they're talking about, because they don't always do, okay? So in this case, I call my sister up and I go, look, man, in sense, that watch, they may have sold you the wrong watch. Gave you the paperwork, the wrong watch. Is there a possibility that Rolex screwed up? Yeah, it's very slim, but it happens. Or could that be a service dial maybe? I don't know, but it didn't look like a service dial to me. So she's like, okay, and then I told her, I go, look, don't call the AD, go to the AD the next day, talk to the watchmaker, because they have a watchmaker there. And apparently this watchmaker is 60 some odd years old, and he's a certified Rolex technician since he was like 17 years old or something, and he's also a Rolex historian. So he, the watchmaker was like, well, what could have happened is that Rolex screwed up in the transition from the 124060 to the M and put the wrong dial on the watch. Most likely not, because Rolex generally don't make mistakes, but it can happen, right? So the watchmaker said he would call Rolex the next day and talk to them. So fast forward to the next day, my little sister sends me the email. And essentially what had happened, without Rolex admitting they screwed up, stated that that dial on that watch, as far as it goes back, has had that dial since the watch was basically essentially born. It's also been back for service before that, to a Rolex service center, and the dial wasn't changed at the service center due to either the customer saying they don't want the dial changed, because you can do that. You can get, if your dial's jacked up, they can put a service dial on it, or you can keep your dial, depending on what it is. And they chose to keep the original dial, which is that dial. So then it goes to Rolex Service Center. Okay. Now that person owns that watch, and unbeknownst to them, they probably don't even know. So then that watch now gets onto the market where it's a certified pre-owned Rolex. In order for it to be the certified pre-owned, it goes back to the service center, right? And that watch was serviced again and let go, and now it's in Bucharest, where her AD is. Rolex then offers to replace the dial to a 4-line, to the proper dial on that watch. So my little sister sends me a text, the whole thing, and says, hey, would you keep it as it is, or would you get the dial replaced? I was like, hell no, keep it as it is, man. That's a cool story, right? I don't know if it's going to add too much value to the watch, or if any, but it's a mistake that Rolex made, and I'm sure, that as long as you got all the paperwork, which they're doing, they're redoing all the paperwork, and they're giving her everything to show that that is the correct model. Because when she had gone to the AD, the watchmaker, because I'm sorry, I gotta backtrack a second, because when I told her to go into the AD, I said make sure they take it apart, because all right, on my GMT and all modern Rolex now, the serial number is at around the 6 o'clock position inside the hot of the dot, whatever, the dial. Anyway, and in this case, it wouldn't be there. So I said, make sure he takes the back off and shows you the serial number that matches that paperwork, and it most certainly did match. So yes, it was confirmed that watch was that. Matched the paperwork, right? So I told her I would keep it. You know what I mean? What would you do? I think the thing is what makes this whole thing pretty funny and crazy. I had notes, but I didn't even really use them. Not only was it missed by Rolex from the birth of that watch, it was missed by the service center again when the watch was serviced. Then it goes to the AD. Now the AD had to have purchased that watch. They missed it, right? How did they miss it too? They sell, then it goes back to Rolex to get certified for the certified pre-owned. They miss it. Goes back to the AD. They miss it again. They sell the watch. They miss it. Little sister goes in, and now it's this whole thing. Anyway, the video is getting long, but I basically told her, I go, make sure you get everything into place, paperwork, everything, to show what that watch is. So when you get insurance on that watch, if something were to happen, no red flags are going to pop up from the insurance company, right? And plus you got a cool story, and you bought yourself a really cool sub. Now she got a good price on it. All right, I know what the 124060s are going for on the secondary, and the M's what they're going for on the secondary, and she really didn't pay that much more than what she needed to, or what she I think she paid about $1,900 over retail of what a current sub is right now. So and she's got a really good watch with a really good history and a really good story and a really happy birthday. So having said that, you guys, I appreciate everything as always, and I hope you like my new couch. And let me know if you like this setup better, or if you liked it. I don't know, it doesn't actually matter, but I appreciate you guys. All right, so have a good one. Have a good rest of your weekend. Dr. Pepper, yum. You can't always be drinking beer, dude. All right, take care.